So the first part of our meeting tonight is from 5 to 5:15 is the public hearing. It is to request the approval for an emergency expenditure under RSA 32:11 in the amount of $1,300,000. These funds are for an emergency project at the town wastewater treatment facility to replace both primary screw pumps and bar rack that are critical to processing and filtering wastewater above grade and allowing it to flow through the treatment process. The source of the revenue we would seek would come from the Littleton Sewer Enterprise Fund, undesignated fund balance, which is currently at $1,603,596.38. And Doug Damko is here. Okay.
Good evening, Select Board. I just wanted to give you a brief update on this emergency authorization. We've begun the process of speaking with DES, and they have a couple of representatives here this evening about the permitting process for doing these emergency repairs. We've also started discussions with the Frames Group, who will be presenting tonight for the asset management project that is regarding the treatment plant, so it's a very opportune time to talk about all those things in a more holistic package. But we are getting the Dufresne's on board in particular, because they did work on the St. Johnsbury treatment plant very recently in terms of similar type upgrades and repairs. And they're bringing some good things to the table for discussion with us on alternatives and even potential grant funding opportunities that we might be able to possibly make work, and even with it being an emergency type project. So those are good things.
Okay.
But anyways, their emergency authorization is for kind of the maximum amounts that we are thinking that we might need. So we've got about $1 million allocated for the screw pumps and about $300,000 for the bar rack. But we do really hope that we can come in with lower costs on those items and potentially grant funding.
Maybe Doug, you had explained before about what this is, and if we don't do something about it, what could happen, and maybe you could further reiterate that for...
Yeah, the screw pumps are, all the town's waste is flowing underground to the plant that needs to be lifted up to flow through the treatment process. And so we have 2 screw pumps that alternate and share those duties, and as of now, one of those screw pumps has failed. It's got a weld that's it's 32 years old. They're actually both the same age. So the concern is the other one is on borrowed time as well, and they've actually exceeded their useful life. They're expected to have about a 20-year useful life, so they've actually done well for the town. But it's definitely time to get them replaced. Okay. And we will be looking potentially at other technologies to do something different if it can fit within the schedule of getting this done quickly.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
And just the other thing to add to it, the bar rack is something new that came up in the...
Yep, the bar rack is
last month. So
yep, we have a bar rack. It's important, and it's screening out all the materials that are going into the screw pump so that they don't get hit with rocks and other larger objects. So those bar racks just failed in the last few weeks, in the first part of May. So we included that kind of into the emergency authorization. We want to get a better system there too that will eliminate some of the things coming into the plant, so that hopefully the rest of the plant can not be as affected by all the sewage has all sorts of things in it. So the more we can get out of it, the better. So.
Okay.
And the current bar rack is obsolete, meaning they don't make it anymore. So we've been wasting time and money on fabricating parts. Would just be a Band-Aid. So in talking with Dufresne, there may be an opportunity to look for something that might be able to fit in the current system without a lot of construction. That would be the hope, which would keep the cost down. And as Doug said, maybe some other options technology-wise in reference to a different pump system that could be less expensive than $1 million. So the 1.3 would be what we would consider worst-case scenario, not to exceed.
Okay.
Dufresne's group will be covering more aspects of the plant this evening as we go through the presentation.
Okay, good. Questions?
So, Doug, one pump has failed already?
Yeah.
Right, and we can run on one pump?
We can run on one pump.
Unless we get a heavy rain?
With heavy flows, they'll both kick in. And right now we have a temporary portable pump out there to provide some of that fill-in.
Ready to go? Okay.
No questions? We can open it up to public comment, public questions. Okay, hearing none, we will, and you guys will, of course, stay available. We'll keep this open till 5:15 in case a question comes up or you think of something that you want to share, and then we'll close it out. We'll vote on it at 5:15. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. So the next, going back to the regular agenda, which will, would it be easier for, yeah. Would you mind, Bruce, standing at, because the mic, the acoustics? You can't hear me either? Okay.
I got a number of questions pertaining to what's going on with the sewer plant. I know there's some problems, working on it now, there's no question about it. But from what I got told, the fact that you have cut out taking care of any of the sewage that's all in there, and that lowers the cost of revenue by $100,000 a year.
I can answer that. Yes, we have stopped receiving waste from septic systems. That was a revenue generator because it would overburden the system in its current capacity. If these repairs are done and there's another step that we're presenting to the board, we'll be able to start reaccepting that septic discharge, which then would be a revenue generator. But we've had to stop that based on the current problems that are going on because the plant would exceed its efficiency and capacity for what it's treating now.
I don't believe that the sewer plant is up to capacity. It never has been.
No, from its flows, you were correct. If you look at a report, its capacity might show it's at 40 or 50%. But the capacity I'm talking about is what it's working to clean that 40 or 50% is pushing its limits.
Okay, well, based on your revenue, if you're not going to have any revenue from using that to bring your sewage in from the out basically it's from the people that haul it in and dump it there and pay, that's $100,000 a year that you're going to have less money coming in.
Which is the reason for the repairs and the upgrades, so we can go back to taking that and have a revenue stream in addition to the rate there.
Okay, now, I got a paper here that says that you can apply for grants. Have you applied for any of these things from the federal government?
Well,
Not just you, because I know you're just in here, but has anybody applied for this stuff?
that's what we're working with the engineering firm and the state.
I didn't ask you. I want to know, this came between the board up here approximately 2 months ago. Has anybody applied for any grant money in the last 2 months?
No, we're exploring that to help offset the cost based on knowing now what the problem is.
I'm still saying, you've had 2 months to do something and nothing has been done. Okay? Not you, because you're not just on board, but consequently, you get 2 months, and this is grant money that comes in that it should have been applied for when they came in here and asked for the money before. And number one, you're asking for $1,300,000. You've already got it. Why would you ask for $1,300,000 when they've already approved $825,000? In fact, you approved it.
Look, the 1.3 includes the 850. It was amended to take it from 850,000 to 1.3 million.
So
this is not in addition.
Not what I just heard. I heard you were going to go for $1,300,000.
Total.
Total.
But what are you going to do? You've already approved the 800 and some odd thousand.
This 1.3 includes the 850. It's a cleanup, a catch-up.
How do you do that? We haven't had any vote to disband the other part of it.
I'm going to have to leave that, I mean, I know it was addressed, the 850.
There was an emergency.
You had 1,300,000, that's almost $200 million.
No, 1.3 includes the 850. So if you subtract that out, this is the
Now,
difference.
how do you subtract when you haven't had a vote? You haven't had a vote to take it out. You've already got a vote in here, it was put in, and it was voted on by you in the town building, to approve the $800 and some odd thousand dollars, and it was approved by the board in here for the $800,000. Now you're coming in here telling us that you want $1,300,000. And unless you've got some way of just going back, you have to have a vote to disband before you go ahead and get the other parties, unless you're going to just go for the difference between the 800,000 and the 1,300,000.
And I don't know the procedural question to that. I just know that the 1.3 includes the 850.
Jim, I think, Bruce, all we need to do is amend the vote from the last meeting. Just correct
It
it.
wasn't the last meeting.
I'm sorry?
It wasn't the last meeting.
Whenever that vote was taken, it's just simply to amend it, given the information that we now
Well,
have.
as I'm saying, somebody needs to be doing something. You can't just walk in, because if you left it alone and went for the 1,300,000, you've already got 800,000.
Right.
So that's pretty close to 2 million
Right,
out of the thing. That's not right what you're doing.
Right.
That's number one, without amending it and starting all over again with the $1,300,000. That's the first part. Now, this when your sewer bills are paid, there's 1,500 people in the town that have got sewer bills, roughly. And it's mandated by the federal government that anytime somebody gets a bill, if it's a bill for $100, it's 9%. And that's the maximum that they can charge under the federal government laws. So they're adding another 9% on everybody's sewer bill that's in town. I would assume if you're getting that $100,000, you'd be adding that 9% on top of that as well. From that part.
This is not dealing with rates. This is dealing strictly with reserves and the repair.
Listen, if you've got plans in here to in turn do from the diner to the Beal House, that's sewage, and other things in here on it. If you use all this money up, you're not going to have it on it to be able to expand and do these other projects out of the thing on it without that time.
No, I agree, but if the plant doesn't work and it breaks, there's no reason to expand because nobody will be serviced.
I understand, but I understand it also that says if you order these things now, it would be at least another 6 to 9 months before you get it in.
If we went the
And I
screw
understand.
pump system, but there could be other options that we're talking with the engineering firm about. That could expedite that timeline.
Yeah, I think I called you and I called, what's his name over here, and I gave him the name of Don
Yeah.
Levitt. Did you talk to him?
No, but we've got the number.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you if you talked to him.
No, because until the board approves money for repairs, there's no reason for me to talk to a vendor because I don't have any way to pay them. So this has to happen first.
Jim,
Listen.
we have about 1 minute left, and Bruce, I really do want to allow others to speak if they would like to.
Say about this thing on it. I don't think you're handling it correctly pertaining to what it is. This Don Levitt down in Lisbon out of the thing on it, he in turn installs pumps all over the place out of it. I gave you both of you guys a name and a telephone number to call him. I called him out of the thing on it. And he in turn is very familiar with screw pumps and repairs and dealing with it, and you could have asked him to come and take a look at it, and maybe he had an alternative to it from that. He's a local person out of it. You got 2 or 3 other local people in here that should be on this board from the point of dealing with it on here. I am just appalled that you guys want to dig in and spend this money because it's there and not have any extra money out of it for other...
Bruce, we don't want to spend it just because it's there. We have a very, very serious issue down there. Very serious. And And we are doing what we need to do to get the issue corrected.
Well, why didn't you do it 2 months ago when you appropriated the 800 and some odd $1,000? You didn't do anything.
We've all been working on it.
You didn't do a thing. You didn't no money. You didn't go into this government thing to get it. You've done nothing other than possibly talk with an engineering company.
I do want to give others a chance if they have something to share.
That's fine. You can give me.
So it is,
I'm not a happy taxpayer pertaining to what it would be as far as a sewer bill or other thing. This is not a correct way of doing it, especially when you're not going to get it unless you come through with something else. And you've had 2 months to come through with a different program out of it, and you haven't come through with anything. On it, you had 800 and some odd $1,000. I'm telling you, it's not an appropriate way of doing anything on what you're doing in here.
But Mr. Haddock, in all due respect, it's not a tax issue. The wastewater treatment plant is an enterprise fund. It generates its revenue from customers, so your property taxes don't have anything.
I didn't say anything about property taxes. I said sewer tax. Okay?
so is there anybody else that would like to share from the floor in regard to this issue before we, and we will extend it for a little bit because I know there are questions, so.
Sorry, I came in a little bit late. We're speaking about the emergency expenditure for the pumps for the wastewater treatment?
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, asking for clarification. Any other questions? So do we leave this open for
Leave it
a couple more minutes?
For 30 minutes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Rudy, would you mind please coming to the podium to share or to ask your question?
The $1.2 million, it's a grant from the state.
It may help if you just like pull, there we go.
The $1.2 million, it's a grant from the state?
No, it's not a grant.
Taxpayer money?
No, it's money the plant has in reserves. Over the years, you put money
you already
away.
have a $1.3 million?
Yes, we're going to see if we can get grants or something to help reduce that cost.
Yes.
But it comes out of the reserves for the plant.
That doesn't mean it is $1.2 million, it doesn't mean you know how tax.
No, it's not a tax, it's in
Anyway,
reserves.
Welcome. Any other questions, comments? It's okay
I'm
to
good.
close it down?
Yeah, close it at 5:30.
5:30. Actually, it's only supposed to be 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Close it.
All right, hearing nothing else, I will entertain a motion to, I guess it would be for approving and expending
Up to 1.3.
1.3, yeah,
I'll make that motion.
okay,
Do a second.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Okay, and then we'll have to sign that. Okay, so next on the list is the Dufresne Group is here to talk to us more about the wastewater asset management program. So we'll turn it over to Doug and to Stan and the rest of the Dufresne Group.
Thank you. Good evening again, Select Board. Tonight also in attendance is Sharon and Eliza with the DES, and they've been involved in this asset management. They're the overseeing agency, and they've reviewed the report. And I believe it's in good condition and final status, and so we're presenting it to you this evening. It's if you notice, we're referring to it as and Stan's going to go through the slides that they put together for us tonight. This asset management began back in 2018, and that was really with the sub-area 5 sewer project, and that was considered the phase 1 project. So also the Dufresne Group did that phase 1 report for us, essentially program report, asset management program. That was interesting, tying COVID into this. We presented Dufresne's presented the asset management report to you for phase one at the very first select board meeting after COVID. So it was March 23rd of last year when we had that WebEx meeting and had a lot of difficulty with audio and hearing each other. Dufresne's was presenting the phase one asset management program to you guys. So just a little time there. But so tonight is phase two. Phase one focused on the collection system. Phase two focuses on the treatment plant. So that analysis has been completed. That program has been put together by Dufresne's. And so the purpose is basically of the report is to provide data-driven decisions for you as a select board, exactly what we're talking about this evening with the emergency authorization, to really cost-effectively manage the wastewater program at an acceptable level of service. So again, instead of just looking at individual issues, it's looking holistically. After the asset management program is in place, there's the next phase, which is called preliminary engineering, that we are going to be working with Dufresne's to go into next, which will take the asset management and dig even deeper. So Dufresne's has a lot of good things on there, knowing the current issues that we're talking about this evening. Those will really guide the preliminary engineering analysis that we'll do next. And that preliminary engineering is actually required for, kind of answer a little bit of Bruce's question on grant funding. The preliminary engineering needs to be completed for a lot of the different grant opportunities that are available in the wastewater world. So we're going to be going through that preliminary engineering as soon as this presentation is done and get that going concurrently while we're working on this emergency authorization project. So, Stan, next slide. Tonight the presentation will cover data inventory. That includes GIS and Access database and our new PubWorks software that we're working on. We'll look at program implementation, communication, level of service goals. That includes performance metrics, system replacement values, existing status or existing condition, and recommended projects. So the town's very fortunate working with CAI on the GIS mapping that we have to work off that. So it's been very good to work with Dufresne's and basically add additional information into our GIS mapping as a great tool for tracking. It works particularly well with the collection system and our manholes and pipes, but we're going to be using that a little bit for the treatment plant, not to the same level, but it's a good tool. The Access database is actually another more important part that Dufresne's has put together that includes the treatment plant, includes our pump stations. There's 3 pump stations in town, our force mains that come from the pump stations, all of our gravity sewers, and basically puts together a priority ranking of all those different assets according to a lot of different, goes into a mathematical equation and produces a ranking of all those different assets. In terms of when it comes to their condition and what kind of projects we should be pursuing. PubWorks is a kind of an independent process. We've been working on PubWorks for a couple of years that I've been here, and that's an overall just public works management software that we've been trying to get in place to replace some older stuff that we currently use. But we're partnering with Dufresne's and trying to get all this asset management data into that public works software, and that'll become our main operating tool. So far it's been coming along really, really well. So the asset management program is broken down into implementation and maintenance. So this year is establishment in 2020. So all that work has been completed for data collection and basically putting the report together. 2021, where we're at now, is refinement. So for us in particular, it's getting PubWorks online is the program we'll be using. We're in that process right now, working on getting a better work order system in place. And it's a program that not only we're going to use in Public Works, but we're also going to have H2O innovation that's running the plant, switch over and use that same program. So hopefully we'll have a one-stop shop software that works for all the different operations of Public Works. And then we'll go into maintenance, and that's just going to be an ongoing issue of trying to keep data current. And part of the asset management program is for the town to continually, it's a living, breathing kind of program, and we need to be updating it. So that's really fall to us to just be reviewing and keeping it current, doing maintenance on it. And then evaluation. Obviously, we need to look at it, go over the level of service goals that are in the program, and make sure we're on the right track. If we need to adjust those level of service goals, they're usually pretty straightforward with wastewater, but there's always things that need to be looked at. So those are kind of the main steps of the asset management program. Communication, that's another big part of it, and tonight's a good example of communicating from the staff level to the select board. But I'll be the central hub of the asset management program, handling all communication with stakeholders. That's H2O Innovation, that's the community of Littleton, all the dischargers into the sewer system, whether they're industrial, residential, commercial, presentations and updates to the select board and town manager. We're also looking to do mailers, which I don't think has been done much in the past, but to try to get information out, just general helpful information out through mailers in the wastewater billing, things of that nature. Getting our industrial permitting program, up to date and keeping that up to date in terms of notices to those folks is important. And just regular meetings at the staff level to stay current. So those are all the different communication components of the program. Talk about level of service, there might be a term you're not familiar with, but so I identify what we'd like to see as optimum operating conditions and try to identify what those are and then make sure we've got those documented and we're aiming to meet them. So that's broken down into 4 categories. We have system performance, basically how the treatment plant and the collection system is performing. We've got customer service, and how we receive requests for information or issues with the system that need to be taken care of, so there's that element. There's system maintenance, and there's staff management.
Can you tell us what 0 to 14 means? I think overall, the chart explains itself, but the metric
I think that's
itself.
just kind of an example. Stan, maybe you can clarify that.
Yeah, that's just arbitrary, just to try and show, that's just a graphic to show tracking metrics, and the intent is that it's over time, so you're continually looking at the goals. How did we do last year? This is where we fell short. How can we improve this year? Let's make some adjustments to address where we fell short. Maybe tracking this metric didn't serve any purpose. We'll get rid of that one. And instead of tracking that individual metric, we'll try tracking a different metric. And that'll give us a better idea. So it's, like Doug already touched on, this is one of the hearts of everything, because this is how you're getting feedback on, we're tracking the data, we're tracking the costs, we're looking at the energy that we're putting in individual places. How is that transferring from customer to our staff, to our performance? How are we doing? So these are your actual metrics that you look at and say, we're doing great in these areas, we're falling short in these areas, and let's shift some resources. So it's a really good tool for reassessing. It's basically a basis of data, collecting the data, considering it, and reallocating resources appropriately to meet your desired level of service goals. Did that answer your question?
The next slide that Stan has in the presentation, it's going to be too small to read, but it's actually taking those 4 different categories and actually this is the specific level of service goals that are in the plan. The interesting thing is a number of them are 0. We don't want to have any overflows to the river. We don't want to have any exceedance of copper. We don't want to have delays in our notification system with sewer pump failure. And so a lot of the number of the level of service goals are 0. But you can't. There's a lot of small numbers there. But that's basically a summary of exactly what's in our program for our level of service goals. Then the next part of it was system replacement values, and these are pretty important. Big numbers to take a look at. Any questions on that before I continue on?
No, I'm good, no.
you mentioned the fact that this thing was put in here 2 years ago, 2018.
That's when the asset management program work began,
It was
Started.
at that time.
when it was started.
And a report came from your company back in 2018.
No, I think that phase one report was either the end of 2019 or early 2020.
Yeah.
March 2014.
Yeah, March 2020.
That's when it was initiated. the one that's
Completed.
about it came in.
That's when the phase one report was completed.
And how much was that cost?
49, I don't know. Sharon,
Will be in. I'm still asking because I want to know what we're dealing with him as to what we're dealing with as far as money.
Why don't we finish the presentation first, Bruce, and then we can go back to ask for questions?
Yeah, I can clarify that later, Bruce, after we get through the presentation. So anyways, these are the big ticket costs for what we're looking at for the overall sewer system, both collection and treatment plant, in terms of replacement values. So total of $42 million. The collection system is obviously the largest because it runs on almost every town road, in-town road, and requires digging up the road, as you guys saw in the sub-area 5 project. I mean, it's extensive impacts to the road and to the neighborhood. So that's our largest value item of the sewer collection system. But the treatment plant there at 10.7 million is a pretty good chunk of change. So here we have an existing status, and this is a little bit to tie into the public hearing this evening. Frames has identified that 47% of the treatment plant and pump station assets will reach the end of their useful life by 2030. And some of those components, even right now tonight, are not part of that 40%, 7% already, or 100% need. We have the Brickyard pump station. We have found a problem with the force main that pumps the sewage down that line. Unfortunately, it's a small 4-inch line, and it's going to be difficult for us to actually figure out where the problem is. We need to investigate that and address that pump station issue. We have what we've talked about tonight for the emergency authorization, the screw pump failure. We also have the bar rack failure. Also the headworks, and the bar rack is part of the headworks. But the headworks and clarifiers have met or exceeded their expected useful life. Is explained with the bar rack failure. And then clarifier number 2 also is an issue that just came to our attention here at the beginning of May, where we have some sort of rupture issue in the clarifier. At this point, we can't evaluate it until the flows are down. When we get more into the middle of the summer, July, we'll be doing a draining of that clarifier and trying to get an evaluation on what that issue is. So we will be coming back to the select board with a presentation and update on that. And we also have the preliminary, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have the preliminary engineering report in progress. So the goal will be to come back with an update on the preliminary engineering report, plus the clarifier 2, plus probably an update on the screw pump replacement and what our actual plan is going to be in terms of grants, in terms of alternative options. There are some other options other than screw pumps that we're going to evaluate. So that will be all next. I'm going to hand it over to Stan and let him cover this slide here and go over some of these items and then the topics that he wants to maybe enforce from what I've shared.
Slide that we were looking at before, I think is a pretty clear representation. 47% of the assets at the pump station, collection system, wastewater treatment facility are kind of reached the end of either have or will by the year 2030 reach the end of their expected useful lifespan. So that's one of the outcomes of this asset management plan, was to look at where can we lump in those. I mean, obvious investments are needed. I mean, we you gotta keep the infrastructure going, so the data-driven decision-making that the asset management program gives you lets you prioritize those projects and say, well, what's the highest priority? What do we need to address first? What's the best bang for our buck? Like Bruce touched on, buy you some time so you can look into the future and plan on these things and consider alternatives and updated technology and how can we optimize this process and not just knee-jerk reaction to pump failed, we have to replace it, what do we do? And you don't have time to consider other technologies or alternatives. Fortunately, we are going to be looking at some alternatives for that. We've already got the ball on a few different options, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to save some costs in that area and provide some optimization for operational efficiency. But up on the chart here are some of the projects that we project out that we recommend within the 1 to 3 year window. And one of them, although the top one, screw pump replacement clarifier evaluation. I think we're one of the topics of the emergency authorization was the replacement of the screw pump because one of them has failed. And they're of the same age, and like Doug touched on, the other one could be living on borrowed time at this point. So that's a high priority, and that's some of the data from the asset management program definitely reflects that. The clarifier evaluation Doug was just discussing, that there is an issue with short circuiting on clarifier 2 right now. So we need to take a look at that, dig into that a little bit. And these costs, unlike the previous costs, these costs are total project costs, or estimates of total project costs. So these include administrative costs, contingency costs, engineering costs. The previous costs that were shown on the slide were 47%. Those were straight replacement costs of the asset. You were able to just roll right into construction. And the goal of setting up that way is that you can lump projects together for economy of scale and then evaluate the total project cost. So this was us looking at 1 to 3 years, putting some of these higher priority assets together and trying to form projects. You'll see the second project up there recommended is the sub-area 2 collection system, which I know you guys have voted on before. That's been presented, you guys have touched on that. That's the part of your collection system overall that needs the most attention. It's a high area of inflow and infiltration, and construction means and methods, it just should be brought up to monitoring standards. Next down the list, headworks and plant water improvements. We already touched on the headworks that have reached or have exceeded their design life. That bar rack that Doug is discussing replacing is like 1968, I think, and it's a mechanical system, electric drive, so it's lasted a long time at its time. The other systems paired inside the headworks, your brick removal, which are the processes that predate the rest of your biological processes. It's to take out the heavy-duty stuff that will harm the other processes, hurt the pumps, screw pumps, submersible pumps, whatever is downstream. So headworks is vital, and it's time to take a look at that. And then we had a pump station improvements project, which was mostly looking at updating controls, taking into account some new technologies and providing some alarm updates so that the operator can have real-time monitoring and be alerted if there are any issues that are going on with the pump stations in real time. So as you can see, total cost 1 to 3 years, we're looking at somewhere around $8 million total investment in the wastewater infrastructure system. And depending on what kind of grant funding opportunities are available, long-term low-interest loans, you're somewhere around 20 to 40% increase in wastewater rates to be able to accomplish all these goals. So Doug did a pretty good job chatting about this, but this is one of the great things about the asset management program. The reason why it's so important to have it in place is it lets you get ahead of these issues. You're looking at real-time data, evaluating the data, and crunching the numbers so that you can be considering what's my best alternative for this when it's time to replace it, and how can I fund that? How can I optimize the process so you're not in a reactive mode, you're in a proactive mode, and addressing issues before they become emergencies.
Thank you, Stan. I want to give an opportunity for Sharon to come up and speak on behalf of DES.
kudos to the town of Littleton, for taking on asset management. It's about effective utility management. And Littleton's done a really nice job of rebuilding the district. I was just on vacation last week in Texas. And it's like, it's great to show off more. But without wastewater treatment, collection, that's not going to sustain, that's not sustainable.
Is that
So it is
Michael?
very important.
Is that Michael?
These assets to be maintained. So I encourage you to keep supporting the regulatory needs for the asset management program and the wastewater.
You may want to talk a little closer to the mic. You've got a soft voice.
So I do want to, in answer to Bruce's question, the asset management program has been funded through a loan forgiveness program that DES has, and the collection system was funded with a $30,000 loan forgiveness program. The vertical pump stations on the treatment plant, it's another $30,000. The piece you haven't done yet, we have another $30,000 for stormwater. So that's next. That'll be another layer on this. The other, you're talking a lot about planning and the preliminary engineering that needs to happen for the clarifiers, for the screw pumps, for bar rack and works. We've got a $75,000 loan forgiveness program for planning projects that can cover up through preliminary design. Timing-wise, Bruce, you said it's been 2 months, why haven't they done anything? We only accept pre-applications once a year. That date's coming up, so timing is perfect. June 1st is the deadline for pre-applications. The planning projects, those are competitive. Asset management projects are not. If you submit a pre-application for asset management, you will get the funding, as long as you're still eligible, which Littleton still has stormwater funding there. I would encourage you to put a pre-application in for every one of those priority projects. The pre-application process is not a commitment. It's really no risk to you, but it gets you in line to get funding. Everybody's heard about stimulus funding. We don't know when it's coming or how much is coming, but we want to have a lot of projects on the list so that if it comes, you're in line. So I would really encourage you to, even if you're not sure they're going to go forward this year, put the pre-application in so you're in line. I don't know how those projects will be funded. It will be similar to the ARA funding we had back in 2009, where it was 50% grant, basically. I don't know how that will all work out. Another way to look at Stan did a good job with these slides, and it's like, okay, your treatment plant is worth $10.7 million. Putting in a 20% investment, if you look at just the priority projects, with the headworks and the clarifiers and the screw pumps, that's a 20% investment since 1968, is that? So that's not bad.
No.
You're just investing in your infrastructure. So if you make a 20% investment in the home over that many years, that's not a bad investment. You're maintaining that infrastructure. The rate study also, and you said rates going up 20 to 40%, that could be part of that planning principle forgiveness project. So that's all. If you have questions on the pre-application process, let us know. I can give you my card. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
We hired it done, we would have had to issue that money so we can anticipate getting $30,000 back.
On On the collection system one, that has already happened. That loan has been closed and paid off. For this loan, the Bertha pump station and the wastewater treatment plant, that loan will be, as of basically tomorrow, will be your final disbursement. Your final invoice, the final disbursement will be made, and that loan will be paid off as well.
Yeah, if we pay for it, the bill comes to the town,
Yes,
and the town will pay for it.
yes,
So you're gonna relieve it, so we should be getting a check back from your office
yes.
of $30,000.
We pay back, basically the town submits invoices to us.
Right?
We send the town a check for those invoices.
So we can anticipate getting $30,000 back from you.
Yes, some of it's already
In the
been
sewer
paid.
fund.
Some of it's already been given back.
How much of it's been given back?
I don't have the account,
Does anybody have it up here? No?
We don't.
I haven't seen the finance director.
I mean, not off the top, I'd have to find that out in finance.
I mean, those are the questions that you have access to if you meet, one way or the other. Well, the other one is, I believe we paid a sewer pump, now we were told paying $4,000 a month for backup sewer, for a pump, backup pump, that's there. Am I right, Doug?
Yes, that's correct, Bruce.
And we've been paying it since when?
We've been 2 months now. We're in the third month.
Yeah, we anticipating how long that will be there until this project is done.
Until the project is done.
So it could be as much as another year, depending on that $4,000, plus another $50,000 or $60,000 to pay the rent on that. And that comes out of the school. You've only got $300,000 unless you can do something with less money. Now, I talked with Mr. Green down there in your area. I talked to him the other day, and I was like, well, every single one of these things have to be run through the state of the game for an okay, have to be approved, and so it's happening. Am I right on that? Not so much that he and turned in charge of all of the things that we're do, and okay, no matter what it is, I'm do. Like I say, I just think that we're getting into this thing, nobody's going 100% excellent wrong. I agree that it's so right out of the community, and what it is and how it is. And the fact that it looks like we're developing some alternative things to the school and stuff like this. Which would be. But again, we have some local people here that should be on this board now. The area, you've got young Lloyd, construction business, you've got Donnie Lovett, his company in terms of Lord installing these sewer pumps all over the country. He lives right in Lisbon. We should be putting some of these people on these committees. They may have some alternative ideas. He was down the course, I saw him the other day, installing in the Navy down there as far as that goes. And he's a local boy right down here, out there, one of the large companies that does all these installations. He volunteered to come here. I gave Doug his number, and he was down there, apparently the one that he called.
So Bruce, if you've done that already, why don't we leave it up to Doug and to Jim to follow through with that?
Because they didn't do it.
We appreciate your input, we appreciate your ideas. They're well aware of your input, and it is very much appreciated. But now we've got to leave it up to them to go with it. A meeting,
Same identical thing.
Bruce, a meeting like this isn't the place to bash them, for lack of a better word. It's,
The town needs to be going on. Here's another one. Put out an April thing.
okay, and you guys, you're fully aware of okay, all right,
Names and numbers and anybody.
all right, no, appreciate
Just to
that.
clarify, I
So-
did commit to Bruce that I would follow up with his recommendations
Okay.
on point of contacts. And Dufresne's obviously is in the wastewater world quite a bit, so we want to explore all resources. And I
Sure.
told Bruce that we would be competitively bidding this project and making sure all pump companies and contractors that are qualified will get an opportunity, and we'll get the best product we can get for the town.
Thank you, Doug.
75 miles from the border, all things on Speedway, possibly city of Canadian phase rate, stuff like this. Other than you're getting federal funds out of the area.
So the next order of business, do we have to vote on that as far as going into this phase 2? Do you need a vote from us?
Shouldn't have to on face. Shouldn't
No,
have to.
all right. Just information, okay. All right.
We will put together a certificate of completion basically internally, and that will start it all.
Okay, great, thank you. So the next order of business is the town manager updates. So we'll turn this over to Jim.
I think bicycle warning signs, I guess better term, are up at the covered bridge at each end now, advising people that you should walk your bike across the bridge. I think they went up this last weekend.
Yes.
And so that part's done. We got notified by New Hampshire Department of Transportation. Doug's asked them to come and give us a presentation, but they're planning to do repairs on the Cottage Street Bridge at the joint that's there. So it's going to have, and that will be during the summertime, so it's going to have an impact involving traffic, and both pedestrian and vehicular, involving Main Street. And so it may have some impact in reference to the tourism and the business and what have you. They're not looking at shutting the road down, but definitely,
One lane.
yeah, one laning it. And
They'll be shifting just like they did on the exit
Yep.
42 project.
Any idea what start date is on that?
It was just really rough for them. I think they said maybe July to September.
So we've asked them to pinpoint that down and then to kind of give us a plan on exactly
Yeah.
how they're going to reroute and what they're going to do. I was asked a question about retaining walls, and in talking with Doug, I've added trees and driveways. If there is a retaining wall out there, and the retaining wall is holding up private property, then that wall is the responsibility of the property owner, not the town. If something falls off and onto the sidewalk or the street, we would definitely pick it up and put it back on their property. If it's a retaining wall that's been built in reference to upholding the road as a part of the road project, then that would be town responsibility. So in some areas where there may be some issues with walls, those are private property owner issues. And I'm not aware of it, this is what I'll talk with Doug and staff tomorrow, is there a notification process? At least something goes out to them, that says, look, your wall is in some disrepair and potentially could be a public safety issue, but at least puts the homeowner on notice that they need to start looking at a plan to fix the wall.
Yeah.
One of the folders I was handed when I got here was to do the update of the lease with the Bank of New Hampshire. And unfortunately, to my surprise and the bank's surprise, we don't have a lease in effect. We've been on month to month for some time because they were curious why we were looking to update a lease when they thought it went through till 2024. But there's no signed lease on any party. So that prompted them to come to town last Monday and meet with me. I don't have a copy of a proposed lease, but their comment to me was that it's costing about $24,500 costs on that second floor. But one item that they identified, and rightly so, is of that $24,500, $9,500 is tax. We shouldn't be charging them tax for property that the government's using. So if we reduce that out, it would maybe put a lease to about $12,000 a year. But I'm waiting on the draft of that. And it's one of those things that I'm not sure how it started or sending the email if we didn't get quiet with it.
It's got to be cleaned
Okay, to
up.
2024, but where we're at, and we'll get a revised lease to you and get things straightened out and bring it back for approval.
So Jim, are you saying that it would be 12,000 a year?
That's,
About
yeah, if we take the tax out of it, it would be around a 12,000 a year, and they say that's a break even, that they're, in terms of their costs.
The last signed lease we had was in 2018. It ended in 2018. I could find nothing else in the files after that.
Yeah, so and that's why when we set the new lease, they even thought we had one till 24, and the person who handled it is gone.
Right.
So once they started digging into it, there was a draft lease, but not signed by any party, and the last comment I got, and not throwing anybody under the bus, but the manager said that we're going to go month to month instead of sign a lease.
So the value in 2018 was, I think, $8,100 a year that we were paying. And so I believe it's going to go up by about $4,000.
Based on the costs that they're going to provide.
Right.
And then from this point forward, we won't charge them tax on a third of the building, which is the third we're using.
Right.
Okay. There's an email in there. They were going to try to have Memorial Day go back to a traditional event, but I think it's still based on COVID restrictions and some of the mixed signals and timing. They're going to go ahead and go with their virtual event, and then I think people meeting at the Veterans Center. So we probably won't see Memorial Day back to maybe its full range until next year, just based on how we recover from the COVID and preparation. And if I could, I'd like to add one item, because we had a meeting today with the attorneys and the engineering or the construction firm that did the Amanuset project.
Yeah.
And there seems to be some agreement on a final punch list that after discussions today and walking the project, they will get back with us. It looks like 95% of it is dealing with landscaping. And so hopefully we'll have the attorney to ask for maybe a draft within the next week so that we can know how we're moving forward, so we can finish off that portion of the project. We're still waiting on a response from the other side in reference to 25 Amanuset. They're evaluating what was presented, and so that portion of the project will still be delayed, and we're working with the state either to get an extension or, if possible, a change order that would take that out. But ideally, it would be best to leave it in and get an extension from the state past the August 2nd deadline on that. But at least that is moving, and looking then to get the landscaping taken care of. Whether we end up doing that with them settling with us on a certain dollar amount, or doing it through the landscape company, we'll determine that based on what they present. And then once that's done, then we'll make sure that it is maintained like it should have been and properly once it's been turned over to the town through the Parks and Rec Department.
Be nice to get that cleaned up.
I do want to add, too, a big thank you to the Department of Public Works, Doug's team, for getting the sidewalks ready for our summer guests, tourists, and for us residents.
Yeah, I would like to speak to that. We actually hired a pressure washing company this year to address the issue of the problem we had last year with our zebra striped sidewalks. And so we have a special treatment this year that did an amazing job to get those sidewalks looking really good. So they look practically neat. I mean, some of the staining is a little bit there, but it's hard to notice. So yeah, we're very pleased.
Yeah.
And they continue to seal those and stay on the program we've been doing and keep them looking good.
That's great. It looks really good, too, and with the crosswalks all freshly painted. Bruce? Do you mind, Bruce, coming up? Seriously, I know it's a pain, but we may be able to. I don't know if we center it.
where we're renting from the bank or the leasing or whatever it is, this was done because of the fact that all banks in the state of New Hampshire are required to give back to every community about 10% of their total raw gross earnings. And it's a compulsion. You see it all the time, you see in the newspapers, they check. Somebody's holding it up, and they're giving you $30,000 for this or $10,000 for that. That rent up there was part of the gift from the bank. Part of the thing on it as far as their expense or what they're required to give as far as the profits are concerned. So don't get into making any big judgments about paying. Milt, I don't think you know what you're doing on that, because that's not true. That's how that was established. It went in there, and they're required by law to pump back into every bank is licensed under the state banking commission now has required to give that money back into your communities. And that's where we're getting the rent so cheap in that bank there as far as that.
Thank you, Bruce. Do you want to look into that?
He wouldn't know about it.
Okay. Well, he can look into it, though, Bruce. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, bringing that up. The next order of business is the request for a new street name and waiver of liability for a private road. And we have Joanna Ray here from Planning and Zoning. Do you want to share?
You want me to read?
Sure.
So this subdivision was approved by the planning board, but they need a street name in order to have addresses. And I checked with our 911 representative from the state. He agreed. He verified the name, met their standards, and all property owners agreed to it as well. So if the board also agrees with the name, I want you guys to accept it, as well as approve building permits for those 4 properties like we did at the last meeting.
So the recommended name is Mountain View Way?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I would entertain, any questions with that?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Roger may have a question.
And that was off the Gannon Road.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what is the road frontage that you need to have for a subdivision in Littleton?
The road frontage, well, there's not an actual road frontage for a lot. It's basically the width at the building site. So we can have like a flag lot where it's skinny at the entrance and then the rest of the lot is larger as long as the house is built further up. I don't think there's any road frontage for subdivisions.
Only because I know this, this road that you're putting in here, on the Gannon Road, there's really not a lot on that lot 79 for frontage at all. But once they put the road into the back piece, there'll be frontage on that road.
Right, the right-of-way that goes up in there was intended to be the access point for all of them because of the stone wall on Gannon Road.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see any problem with them. That's my only question.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor?
And I'll second it.
Okay.
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. Thank you,
And
Joanna.
then you'll approve the issuance of building permits too?
We'll need a motion on that as well, I believe.
Sorry?
An issuance of building permits.
Oh, to sign it?
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, okay with the building permits.
Okay.
Okay, and I second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next item on the list is Chief Smith. And it's the speed change and additional parking restrictions on Upper School Street.
Thank you. I believe you received a packet, which basically explains the situation. So what we're looking to do is Upper School Street, which is north of Oak Hill Ave, just reduce that speed to 25 miles per hour, which is consistent with some of the other side streets in that particular neighborhood. And that's based on the neighbors that live closer to the pump track and trailhead for Marker Mountain Trails. They were the driving force and complainants behind some of the speed issues. So the safety committee met. We believe that that would be an appropriate reduction. Maybe not as far as they wanted to go, but that would be an appropriate reduction for that particular area. The other thing that we were looking at, although Quint Bovair has been extremely helpful in providing his own property, which is close to the trailhead, and providing some parking. On some of the days where they have large events and competitions, people are parking along the roadway. It's fairly narrow at the end, so we're asking that the entire, if you're going north, that entire side remain no parking on that side. And as you're traveling south on the road, that we restrict parking from essentially the parking area for the trailhead to, I believe I put Summer Street, or I'm sorry, East Street.
One side is East Street.
What's that?
One side is East Street, the other side is Oak Hill Avenue, I believe.
That's correct. But as you're going south on the road to the area, I believe I put East Street. So, and the reason for that also is there's a sidewalk that picks up at that point and some curbing. I have noticed that there are residents that do park on that side of the road, and it is safe if it's only on one side of the road. And again, these issues were discussed with the Traffic Pedestrian Safety Committee, which comprises of the Fire Chief, Department of Public Works, Highway Safety, and Town Manager. And I actually believe that there was an action, or potentially board action, or at least discussed pre-COVID. I think because of COVID, we forgot to take it to the next level. So what I'm asking today is that you authorize the speed restriction and the parking restriction.
I actually had a chance, Chief, to go up there this morning. There wasn't a lot of traffic, but I went up, and I actually was trying to go 25 miles an hour and felt very uncomfortable. I felt like I was speeding. So I had even thought, I mean, would it be wrong to go 20? Because once you get up a little bit further too, it does pinch in. And I think with the cars on one side, or if the kids are playing, a ball goes out into the road, and I didn't have an opportunity to pass another car, but I put it right up to 25, and that felt fast in that area.
I mean, drivers have the obligation to drive within the conditions that are available to them at the time. The reason I had suggested and worked with the committee on 25 is because that's consistent with all the other speeds for example, top side of Elm Street, Lilac, and other places. And, you know, if we have all these different speed varieties around the community, the commuters are like, well, what is it on this street? Obviously, it's posted, or asking to be posted. There's also a reasonableness factor for the officers doing the enforcement. And, if we bumped it down to 20, and we discussed that, I don't think 5 miles an hour is going to make a big difference. The traffic study that we did do put most of the individuals between the 15 and 25 mile an hour mark. That's where most of the people were. There were some people in the 26 to 30 mile an hour zone, and very few above that.
Okay, good.
Paul, I have a question or a comment. I don't have a problem with the speed limit posting. It's not a short distance to get from Oak Hill Avenue up to the trail. Saturday we had very high humidity here, and I don't really have a problem with the logic surrounding the no parking. I don't think it's going to work. I honestly think the distance involved here and in a hot, heated day is going to pose potential violations. I don't want to use the word trap here, but you know, when we have a speed trap, we have a setup where you can't slow down fast enough and you get a ticket. I worry that there's going to be a lot of violations here, only because of the distance involved from the parking lots at the school. And my suggestion is that we vote on these items individually, because they are posing different issues. But I don't have a problem with the parking. I just think ultimately we're going to have to put a parking lot, expand a parking lot up in that area if we can. Because I don't believe, I would hope that I'm wrong, but I don't believe this is going to work. There's just too much distance between the school and getting up to those trails. In a hot, warm summer day, people are going to, you know, force the issue, I'm afraid. But I hope I'm wrong.
I'm a little bit confused what humidity is going to do with the speed of the vehicles.
Right, I'm not talking about the speed, I'm only talking about the parking issue.
As far as parking?
Yeah, the parking, the recommendation here, and I was looking for the wording, it said it's only a short distance from East Street or from Oak Hill up to the trails. It's not a short distance, and it's uphill. So I think in the long run, maybe initially to have this no parking, I'll vote for it, but I have a real concern that it's going to be a real test for people to abide by it, only because of the distance they have to go on a high heat day.
So most of these enthusiasts that are there are they're typically hiking these trails. Their conditioning is already there. They can bike up from Granite Park. So I would say they're prepared for that. But just so you know, it's already no parking on which would be east side of the road going north from the intersection of Oak Hill Ave to East Street. There's already no parking on that side of the road. Yeah. So we're asking that it get extended from East Street to the end of the road on the east side. So there's already no parking area that exists on the right hand as you're traveling up the road on the right hand side. Okay. Perhaps I didn't explain that enough here, but certainly that's already part of this. I think, I currently have this orange. I don't know if you got the map and the color, but the orange part, there's currently no parking in that area.
You had mentioned too, Chief, that Quint Bovier has been generous in allowing people to park in his area.
I think Mr. Bratz is 100% correct. Due to the unanticipated use and popularity of that particular trailhead and the outdoor sports, that some consideration needs to be done in the future with expanding the parking, perhaps even the sidewalk or a bike lane, as well as lighting. We asked initially that be lit, so if there's more parking, certainly more lighting.
So do we want to vote on them separately then?
I would recommend it only because we're dealing with different
Two separate
issues.
issues, all right. So I would recommend entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Okay,
And I'll second it.
all right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, good. Then the second,
I would make a motion to prohibit parking on the east side of the roadway from the Oak Hill Avenue intersection to the end of the roadway at the trailhead.
okay.
And I'll second it.
Second it, all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
And I would move that we prohibit parking on the west side of School Street from the trailhead to the intersection with East Street.
all right. So we'll make a motion on that one,
I did.
a separate motion, or do you want that combined with a second motion?
Oh, no, I make that as a motion.
Okay,
Third motion.
third motion,
Third
okay.
And I'll
Second it?
second that.
All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you. Thank you, thank you, Chief.
One other question on that. Is there a parking lot at the end already?
Yes, it's small.
By the White Tower up there?
It's
There is,
small.
and
Is that town
interesting
property?
enough, we haven't received complaints about garbage being there. I think they police it up really well. And, Dave Harkless and the Parker Mountain Trail System people have really done a good job of maintaining it, but I don't think they anticipated the popularity that the sports that they're involved in really use that trail and trailhead.
Okay, I'm gonna go look at that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you should go up, have you been up there recently?
Not recently.
Yeah, take a look, go up. Also, it's access to the radio tower that's up in there as well. But, anytime you want to go up, I'll bring it out. Take a look at it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chief. The next order of business is Fire Chief, replacement of engine number 4.
I know you guys received the packet on this, but I wanted to give you some basic information.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, we got it.
So just to give you a recap, obviously, the warrant article, I'm in the process of getting ready to order a new fire truck to replace engine number 6. And once the audits are complete and stuff, I'll be able to get that order, and I'm hoping that I might be able to get that in around the beginning of the year. On May 8th, engine number 4, which is the 1994 emergency 1 vehicle given to us by the city of Rochester, had a failure of the front that came off the truck while it was out with the truck. And luckily, it didn't strike any other vehicles. It was taken out of service and apparently was a hanger for the suspension system that came off the truck. And that Monday, we had our fleet manager kind of take a look at that to see what was going on with the truck. And initially, he wasn't that concerned with it because we had some issues with the springs that needed to get replaced on the Berlin, so there was some truck up. When the fleet manager went underneath the truck, he was quite shocked to see that corrosion underneath the truck. He was able to put his hand through a couple different places where that corrosion he had a hole in the truck. And his biggest concern was the frame rail, with that hanger being put back on there. His statement was, as soon as you tighten it up, he was just going to crack the frame because there's that much corrosion on the frame rail. When I asked him what the fix for that was going to be, he said you have to replace the frame rails, and he said it's not working for the truck. And his recommendation was to take it out of service immediately. In that same time, I had to take a look at engine number 6 just to see what condition that was in, and I sent pictures of those to you guys. That pictures that you have of the corrosion that's under engine number 6 by the frame rails and the axle of the truck. And again, his concern was that truck may not make it to the arrival of the new truck that we're going to get because it's in almost the back shape as before. So with that being said, we did move some equipment around to try to meet the needs of the department to be able to respond to calls and limit the response of engine number 6 so that we don't damage that and send it to as few calls as possible. So we're using the ladder truck a little bit more heavily from some of the motor vehicle accidents. The information that I just gave you is reimbursements that the fire department will be receiving through the public health network for vaccinations that we performed over the last year, a grant reimbursement for some radio programs that we've already paid for, COVID supplies that we bought during the last year, and we also looked at the trading value of the former engine 3 that's sitting behind the highway garage and engine number 4. And those funds will come to about $65,000 for us to be able to utilize in purchasing the vehicle without actually, or excuse me, to use the vehicle without new to Littleton. But that would give us a more reliable truck for us to use that would get us down the road. I'm anticipating 5 or 6 years so that we can get through the purchase of the new fire truck that we're going to be receiving and not have to deal with replacing another one again until that point in time. Speaking with the fleet manager about going up to look for one of these trucks, we'll look at it mechanically for him to be able to climb underneath it and check out the undercoating of the truck and look at the mechanical side of things while also considering the operational needs of the truck. He thought it was a pretty good idea. So I'm pretty much bringing that forward to you guys for a discussion to look at moving forward with a plan to expend that money to be able to pick up a used fire truck.
Questions?
Do you have a preference in terms of these three trucks that are being, or that are attached here?
No, and thank you for mentioning that. Those were a quick snapshot of what I could find at one site that sells fire trucks. It's a reputable company.
Okay.
I haven't delved into them too much to see exactly what they are. One of the things that I would want to look at is the condition of the truck and how it was actually utilized in the department that they have it in. I haven't reached out to, if you will, areas here in New England to see who has trucks available, just because I don't want to get inundated with salespeople contacting me to try to sell me a fire truck. But I'm kind of hoping to be able to look at some of the local ones as well as some of these ones that might be a little further away. And kind of looking at what we have for road underneath the truck and what we have for hours of operation on the truck as well.
Any other?
So what you're talking about is taking some of this money that you got on this front page to purchase this fire truck, correct? So we talked about it earlier about the COVID vaccinations that you were doing, that were supposed to be volunteer, that the firefighters were punched in on a clock. That money was supposed to come back to reimburse the taxpayers on the overtime and everything for them.
Correct.
So in other words, instead of doing that, you're going to use this money to purchase another truck.
Part of that money, yes.
And the truck says Southern United States.
Yep.
Any idea where?
I don't. The company that you're looking at called Brendan Mountain, I believe they're out of Tennessee, and they buy fire trucks across the country. So I can call to find out specifically like where in the South it was actually utilized versus the Northeast. And that's one of the things that I would want to look at is whether or not it was an area that's experienced, if you will, the snow and the ice and the salt. The other thing that I would want to look at is whether or not, obviously, when you buy a truck now in the Northeast, they're usually coated to prevent some of the corrosion that we're seeing on these trucks from 30 years ago, where the trucks in the South don't have those undercoatings on. But it kind of depends on where that truck is at this point, what the help put that coating on.
Because, the select board was advised last April that this truck that we took a donation of was in perfectly good shape except for a few pump things to do.
Yep.
And was it not inspected correctly, or why is it sitting out back now with the frame bad after just 1 year?
I don't have the answer to that because I'm not sure who. I haven't got to the bottom of the inspection of it to see when it was inspected and why it wasn't caught in that process. Because you're absolutely right, it's not something that just.
I mean, I know you weren't here then, but what I'm saying is, being in my profession, what I see is the little old lady that goes to the post office and back and puts her car in the heated garage.
Yep.
That's the one that goes fast.
Correct.
Is it something that we did wrong as far as not washing the other side, just shining the paint?
No, this corrosion has been there for a while. It's not something that, the only thing I can think of is that it was something that was missed during, and again, following back up with the place that did the inspection on it to find out what they actually looked at, what they put their eyes on, and in this case didn't. I'll be honest with you, crawling underneath the truck, if it wasn't for Bruce actually seeing that, I don't think I would have caught on to the extent of the corrosion, because it was more towards the top of the frame. Looking underneath it, I thought it was actually still in pretty good shape. It wasn't until he got under there and told me it was like, no, it's in pretty rough shape because this is really bad. So if it wasn't for him, I probably still would have tried to go forward and try to get the truck fixed.
So if we decide on one of these trucks that's down south, we'd have to go get it.
Yes, but I believe in that price that it would actually be delivered to us.
So the possibility of Bruce going to inspect this thing before we make a purchase?
If I was to buy it from down south, it might be a little bit more limiting, but I'm planning on trying to look in this area as well to see what I can get. Like, for example, I spoke to him about the city of Nashua has a fleet of, I don't know how many trucks they have, but they have 3 mechanics that are full-time for the state of Nashua. All they do is work on the fire trucks. And I know they're very well maintained, and I can bring them down and take a look at them and stuff. Even though they might have high mileage on them, they've been well maintained by certified individuals. So that's one of the benefits of buying something closer here in New England is that I can actually take Bruce which is important for me to do, and I believe, my hope would be that I can buy them locally here, even if it was a truck that a broker had got from down south and brought up here. And that's one of the other things I didn't put on there, and I'm glad you mentioned it, is that pump work that we were talking about doing for engine 4 is another $15,000 that I have in my budget that I can put towards that, because I'm going to be spending about that pump at this point in time. My intention is to not spend the full amount. I'm not looking to go to the highest price. I'm looking to buy the best truck that I can, the best price that I can. So if it's only $30,000 I have to spend, that's all I plan on spending.
Other questions, Roger?
No, I just think that when you find something that appeals to you, you know, bring it back to the board and we'll take a look at the figures and see if we can do something about getting this fixed out.
So we'd have to give the chief permission to move forward on this. So he would need a motion and a second so he could move forward.
Yeah, before the other one breaks completely, I'll make a motion that we move forward on this and see if we can find something that's going to last us more than a year.
Not to exceed,
The 80,000.
Not to exceed what,
Yeah,
right.
it's capped in.
right, okay. Would that work?
That would
Chief?
work.
Okay. All right, so first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so the final order of business tonight is public comments.
First of all, I want to ask the chair, did you take in consideration that I asked for two meetings ago about the RSA 91-8-3 about the considering that every time you have a meeting, you know, the public can put me, you can somebody, you know. Did you guys discuss it?
We did look into that, Rudy.
Yeah.
Yes. We're not going to go that
We're not
route.
gonna go that way.
Correct, yeah.
And the reason, because actually, the way it works, I mean, I don't want to teach you your job or anybody else's job. The way it works is that when you go on no public input meeting, you know, that everything is going to be put, you know, in an envelope, stuff like that. The first or second day, anybody can come over there and you want to know what that meeting was all about, which you guys, according to this paper over here, you guys have never mentioned why you're going to go on no public. And the right to know, a citizen or who the judge or anybody else, if he asks a question, why you going to go on, you know, no public input, I mean, no public meeting, I want to know why. If you know, if you talk about something, you know, that it's personally, I don't want to name that particular individual, but I want to know why you guys are going to go, because you guys have been using, you know, this 91, you know, 91A, you know, it's -3 very often. And it's, you know, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing it. I would like to know, not just me, everybody would like to know why you guys go, you know, on no public meeting. Why this is secrecy? Why don't you want to be transparent with people? Why, you know? And also, another thing that I want to ask the chair is, did you ever when you go no public meeting, do you ever inform a particular person? Let's just say you're going to have an public meeting about Ruby Jealousy, right? Did you ever call me up and say, listen, we're going to have a meeting about you with no public? Do you ever do that? Do you ever, you know, talk with that particular person that you're going to have the meeting with?
Rudy, if we have to go into non-public, one of these RSAs are checked off. So if, like tonight, we're not going into non-public, so none of these are checked off. So you should be able to pretty much tell why we're going into it.
Mr. Chair, but every paperwork, every time, every meeting, you write all the times and stuff over here. I got about 20 of those. And you never mention no names that you're going to come up public because you're talking about who's jealousy or you're talking about whatever it is. Never. I got about 20 or 2 of those. Okay, you always say that maybe you're going to go on no public, no publication, and the 91 hand, that's straight or something like that. We don't know what that is going on. But anyway, okay.
Well, Rudy, not to be disrespectful, but we don't spend our time talking about you.
No. I'm just saying.
Just saying.
I don't mean,
okay.
I'm not talking about
All
it.
right.
But anyway, another thing is this is one that you refuse to have a citizen of the Littleton attend this particular meeting, right? No problem.
We are not going to do a citizen, like you had suggested, we are not going that route. There may be other towns that do it, but we have chosen not to. We have chosen not to.
Okay. Why? Because secrecy or?
We've chosen not to.
You've chosen not to?
Doesn't mean we might not change our mind in the future, but as of right now, we've chosen not to.
You know the right to know it's a law.
It's a law.
Right? It's a law. It's a book like this. You must know it. Right? Okay. Now, another thing. This is for the town manager, because, it's brand new over here, stuff like that. I attended a meeting last Wednesday or Tuesday of the River District through Zoom. You guys know what is Zoom, right? You guys all went to school, right? You know what's Zoom, right? Zoom?
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, you know what it is, right? That meeting was very intense. That meeting, the chairman, is John Anderson, okay, stuff like that. Nobody from the town, it was an particular attended a meeting to know where $6.7 million they're going to be spent in the next few months, a year, probably 2 years, for the River District. No one knew what it was now. Over this $6.7 million, you guys know that, it's a number, that the taxpayer will contribute closer to $1 million. And someday you and I, I'm going to come to your office. I know a lot of stuff. It's $1 million that the citizens of Littleton, they got to contribute on this River District. It's right here. I can't believe it. I made it. But don't you guys, would have, it's $1 million, it's not like peanuts. Yeah, if you said mention, I would appreciate it.
Rudy, you are right, that no one did participate. And I've gotten with Mr. Hennessy, and I'm now on the list. And we'll get the emails with the Zoom meeting. And while they're a committee, remember, unless they're taking out the loan and they're taking out the risk, they still have to come to these folks for approval. So they can have their wish list. I don't mean this in a negative way. They can talk all the projects they want and looking ahead, but it's the board that has to okay that. And that even means going for grants and any other work. And part of me talking with Hennessy and getting involved is letting them know some of the problems we're now experiencing, like the wastewater treatment plant. Meaning, no, but I use that as an example that we can talk all we want about expansion plans, but until we know that plant can do what it needs to do, we're wasting money and time. And so I'll be involved in that process, but again, they cannot spend the taxpayers' money without the Board of Selectmen's approval.
That's a good.
Okay.
In regard to our water treatment, from this gentleman, what he explained to all of us, I don't know if you guys know the difference between towns, okay? Up in Lisbon, right? Lisbon. It's right here, 2 minutes and you're there, okay? Up in Lisbon, whoever buys a house and wants to put, sewage or water plant, to drink and stuff like that, he's got two choices. Or goes to the town and follows the rules of the town, or he calls, somebody to dig a hole and make a well, or, whatever. It's sent to them. Now, all the money that we spend on this particular thing, how was it happening? You know what I want to say? Forget. Let's the people out of sewage, and let's the people out of well, because we're not going to do it.
Rudy, is there anything else that you wanted to share tonight? Because we're really...
You're in a hurry, right? You're in a hurry.
Not in a hurry, but we also, no, respectful. We have made a commitment to allow people to talk 3 to 5 minutes. And it is in our policy.
What policy? What are you talking?
Yeah.
You don't want me to talk anymore?
I'm inviting you to talk, but I also want to there's other people here.
And you complain when somebody really puts you in the spot with the people, what kind of, person you are, right?
Well,
That's weird.
Rudy, that's why I'm asking you, do you have something else? But I also want to open it up.
We're talking about money. We're talking about things from the citizens in Littleton. People that they're afraid to come over here, talk with you or with anybody else.
They're afraid.
They're afraid.
Okay.
They're afraid because they're not going to go nowhere. Me, I don't care because I don't need you.
Okay. Well, thank you for your input tonight. Appreciate it. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay. So that is the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Make a motion to...
Yes, thank you.
I'll second it.
Second it. Thank you. I think we all agree.